Tonight, Kent explains why giraffes have long necks.
Because they got long legs. They couldn't get a drink if they didn't have a long neck.
Steve has questions about sex.
Do you use your shin when having sex?
And I show off my penguin knowledge.
Penguins are also birds.
Why hello my fellow apes, I hope you're well. Today we're going to be doing a response, and it's going to be different to my normal content. It's going to be an off-the-cuff response to Kent Hovind, who made a response to one of my older videos that relates to evolution. I'm joined today by Reese. If you don't know who Reese is, well, if you followed the Debunked project, then you'll know who he is. Would that be all right for an intro?
Well, the intro that is an advertisement for your game.
Yeah, there you go. You see, we are in the game.
Well, I am in the game.
He's in the game, which is always good.
So the game is now an advertisement for me.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're rolling with this sort of off-the-cuff style because, frankly, this video does not deserve any of Steve's usual attention. But it is funny, so you should enjoy this one.
Yeah, it's going to be funny. You're going to enjoy it, and on top of it's just some of a third thing. Let's get on with it.
Yeah, let's get on with it.
Good evening, folks. Ken Hovind and Matt Powell here, Dinosaur Adventureland in Lenox, Alabama, October 21st, 2021. It is Whack an Atheist Wednesday. I know you atheists have been excited about this. Matt forgot to wear the red shirt, though. Oh, well, next time. Tonight, are there 9 proofs of evolution? We say there are 0, no evidence for evolution at all.
So this is a really great start, right?
Ooh, no evidence at all.
So you've got some...
Not even bad evidence.
Not even bad evidence.
None at all.
None at all. To use a definition where you can say that something has no evidence is going to be really quite a tight definition. So, for instance, take Cameron Bertuzzi of Capturing Christianity. He tends to opt for a Bayesian definition. Josh Rasmussen and like people like this, that's what they emphasize. And so what you would see is humans exist. This is evidence for theism, and the way that you could cash that out.
Literally everything else as well.
There is that, but they don't focus on that. What they would just say is that you would expect to see conscious sentient beings under the hypothesis of theism, and it's like, fair enough, you know, that works in the same sense as if you find gold in your house, that's evidence for leprechauns. But with the definition that Hovind is working with here, it's completely the opposite. He's basically saying that something that is evidence is going to have to be ironclad, just the creme de la creme, absolute 100% proof. And so, using the definition that he uses, it's correct to say there's no evidence for God.
Who did that for? Do you remember? Steve, do you remember who made that thing?
I can find out.
No, it's okay. Anyway, we believe dinosaurs always lived with man, and evolution is the dumbest and most dangerous religious cult in the history of the world. It's a mental illness. You need to see a shrink if you believe evolution. So the 9 proofs, we're going to dismantle them, just at least 1 or 2 of them tonight. Okay, come visit Dinosaur Adventureland in Lenox,
Picture
Alabama.
of Jesus riding a dinosaur.
No, there are. I'm going to bring some up. I think these are unironically done as well, right? So no, I'm serious. So Jesus dinosaur.
Oh my God, there are.
No, yes,
They're
no, seriously,
amazing.
yeah.
Steve, that should be your thumbnail.
That's amazing. Look at this one.
That one. That needs to be the thumbnail.
So the 9 proofs, we're going to dismantle them, just at least 1 or 2 of them tonight. Okay, come visit Dinosaur Adventureland in Lenox, Alabama, 1 mile north of downtown Lenox.
Right, well, we've got about a minute while they do adverts and various things, so I'm going to take this minute to advertise myself, seeing as Steve didn't introduce me all that well. I'm Reese. Go check me out at Castles and Curiosities, where I'll be going around the UK, really, doing a lot of art history, visiting castles and various historic sites. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, please check it out.
He is also going to be doing a video on how Jesus walked among dinosaurs. But he basically just said, as long as someone says that they want it in this comment section and it gets 150 likes, he'll do it.
How do I turn your microphone off? Plug the damn game.
All right. Yeah, second thing I want to quickly plug is just Debunked. All right. So finally, I've got enough of these games in Ohio to be able to, you know, the gates are open. People can get hold of it properly now. So I just want to say that if we sell 100 in the next week, I will send personally 1 to Kent Hovind. If we do 250, I'll send 2. The other one, of course, for Matt. And I just hope they would react to it. It would be so great. So great. Anyway, they're still going. And going and going and going.
So let's get on to when it actually starts.
Yes.
We've been looking high and low for one functioning brain cell in those who claim there's no God, and we came from a dot of nothing exploding. It didn't explode.
I love it. Less than 15 seconds into the actual content of the video, because bear in mind we had all the adverts and stuff first, and immediately we can't find one functioning brain cell in atheists.
It's just
Must be that Christian kindness and humility that we've been looking for.
it's just, and also it's just a straw man, that we all see that we came from a dot of nothing, and it's like, oh my goodness, it's just painful, really. But thanks for the immediate insult, as you said, just championing, Christianity straight up here. So good stuff.
Wonderful.
It rapidly expanded. There's a big difference, I guess, in their mind. Okay. What is the difference? Do you know?
Well, the definition of an explosion is a rapid expansion of material.
No, stop. Definition of explosion is a rapid expansion of energy.
Oh, but that doesn't fit their narrative. They're trying to strawman us. So, it's funny. If you listen to astrophysicists, if you listen to theists that are astrophysicists, Rodney Holder comes to mind, when they talk about the Big Bang, they're very clear with the language that they're using. But I don't know. I guess that these guys would consider those kind of theists corrupted because they accept evolution by natural selection, along with basically every other thing we've discovered in the last 6,000 years.
So when they say it's just an expansion, and the universe went from smaller than a proton to a billionth of a billionth of a billionth of a second, billions of miles across. If that's not an explosion, there's no such thing as an explosion.
Right.
So that's an explosion by very
You need
definition.
help, guys. You need help.
Rapid expansion.
So it's a whack-a-mole game. Is pretty fun. By the way, these evolutionists are moles sneaking into our school system. They've taken over that. The only thing gets taught is their religion. They snuck in and took over. Most people aren't buying it anyway. That's okay.
Most people aren't buying it. I'd say the vast majority, certainly of the academic world, and general people, are buying it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you just look at general people, so here we're looking at a Gallup poll, right, of the US. You can see that the percentage of those who say that God created man in his present form has went down. You can see that those
Still
that
at
say
40%. That's
it's
astonishing.
I'll be honest, it's very embarrassing, but still. And then you've got, look at this, right? Man developed, but God had no part. That shot up.
Essentially, in concept, you're looking at 60% of people there will say evolution occurred. And that's in America, and I know it's higher in the rest of the world.
This is just
not rest of the world.
Yeah,
Europe.
And when you're looking at the serious theists, like those that are regularly publishing in well-respected journals, Alex Pruss, Josh Rasmussen, Robert Koons, Peter Van Inwagen, like you look at these people, they all accept evolution by natural selection. So this idea, this narrative that he sells, where it's not actually, evolution isn't actually getting a grip on the Christian world, let alone the world as at large, he's just wrong, like very, very wrong.
But I think they ought to get their own private school and teach evolution. So many atheists, so little time. So if you're out there, the simple whack is for you. We're going to whack the card-carrying atheist here. I want that skeptic card. I don't want to print my own. Michael Shermer, send me one. I'm a skeptic. I'm skeptical of your dumb theory of evolution. Okay, and Stephen Gould, debate any of you guys anytime. I debated Michael Shermer. How long? Man, that was a long time ago. This was posted November 2016, but the debate was way before that, 90s, I think. Okay, why people believe weird things. Michael, you believe some weird things. You believe you came from a rock. You really do. So you're not skeptical.
I'm sure that's not a misrepresentation of Michael at all. Not one bit. I have no idea what Michael says, but I'm sure it's not misrepresented.
It's crazy, right? It's like, if you believe that Jesus resurrected, one way you could phrase that is by saying, oh, you believe in zombies. And it's like, you're not wrong, but that rhetoric is used to be a dismissal of something that may or may not be true, right? If you're a Christian, you think that's true. But would he count as a zombie? Yes, according to a lot of definitions, there's a reanimation.
Well, what he's just done is essentially no different to me claiming, as a Christian, he believes in a magic man floating on a throne on a cloud.
Let's see, I want to get up to, here we go. The 9 proofs of evolution. Somebody did a 9 proofs of evolution debunked. Have you seen that one? Yeah. Rationality Rules is the guy's name. Okay? That's his code name for himself.
Code name? Secret agent or something?
It's true.
Shaken or stirred agent, Steve.
Well, naturally shaken. shaken to the core by the arguments from this creationist.
Double O rationality.
I go to which one now? This one?
Right.
All right, this one. Hit play.
Before we even begin, must be made. People very often confuse abiogenesis with evolution when they shouldn't. Abiogenesis is the study of how life first emerged from non-living matter, and it's not discussed within this video. Evolution, on the other hand, is the study of biological change over time, and it is the star of this video.
The star of the video. Now hold it. You can't have something evolve if it doesn't exist. How did life get started?
Reese, you cannot have general relativity if you don't have matter. Therefore, general relativity is wrong.
Yeah, how did matter get started?
Meow.
No, I'm just going to stop you there. It's like, you've just said these are two different things. The origin of life and the development of life, essentially. And he's gone, you can't talk about that one unless you give us that one.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we're talking about this specific thing.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
It's like going, look, we have a theory to describe how you get like a termite mound. And then you go, whoa.
How did the termite get there?
No, it's worse than this. You can't have a termite mound if you don't have mud. If you can't prove the mud, you don't know anything about the termite mound. You don't know how it was made. May have been made by pixies.
They don't have a complete theory then.
Well, it's strange how he says that I'm not going to talk about about abiogenesis. That's not evolution. Well, hello, Google chemical evolution. The first thing that comes up is it's defined as abiogenesis. Abiogenesis is defined as chemical evolution. So he says abiogenesis is not evolution. No, it's defined as chemical evolution. It's common knowledge right off the bat. Error.
So I thought we'd take Matt's advice and Google it. Right?
Okay.
So here you go. Chemical evolution may refer to abiogenesis. What he's done is he's Googled it, he saw this, and he's went, absolutely destroyed. But the thing is, Matt, when you're doing research and you're trying to look for something, you've got to be very wary of just like seeing what you want with confirmation bias and then getting on with your life. Because let's click it. It's a Wikipedia link, and it says,
oh, there's a few things there.
Chemical evolution may refer to, because...
Right, so let's read the list here. May refer to abiogenesis, the transition from non-living elements to living systems. Astrochemistry, the study of the abundance and reactions of molecules in the universe. So now we're way out of whatever we were talking about before. Cosmochemistry, the study of chemical compositions in the universe and the processes that led to them. This has absolutely evolution.
This one's my favourite, okay? Because
Gas
this
evolution
is obviously related to evolution, right? I mean, it does mean chemical evolution. Gas evolution reaction, the process of a gas bubbling out of a solution. That is so obviously what I was on about, right? That's great. What I like,
love that.
it's a little unfortunate to see, right? But you see that he's just Googled, and then with confirmation bias taken the first one that comes up. It was alphabetical as well. And what irks me, and is so sad to see, is like, look how he's like right off the bat a big mistake. It's like, dude.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that come under the bracket of chemical.
It's just, what bothers me is just how confident he is. It's like, wow, I'm astonished.
Right.
That's why I divide evolution into 6 different categories. There has to be cosmic evolution first, the origin of time, space, matter. Then chemical evolution. Then stellar evolution. Then organic evolution. Life has to come in here somehow. Then macroevolution, and then micro, which should not be called that. It's a variation of the same kind.
Love it. So Kent's evolutionary theory that requires us all to have all of these things under its bracket, yeah, requires cosmic evolution, which is not what we're talking about. The origin of space, time, and matter, which is not what we're talking about. Chemical evolution, or in their case, abiogenesis, which we've already said we're not talking about. Stellar evolution, organic evolution, where life came from, which is abiogenesis again. And then finally, the things we're talking about with macroevolution and microevolution. The things Steve was discussing. Natural selection, biological change over time. Why have we got all these other things in there?
So Hovind does this, right? He is the only person that does this, as far as I know as well. He insists that evolution is this broad. Like, if you have a theory of evolution, you're going to have to also account for stellar evolution. There is, from Darwin onward, there is no one Dawkins, Gold, like you name it. No one endorses this form of evolution that this straw man. It's just straight up a straw man that Hovind is putting forward. Hovind's been told this lots and lots of times by lots of respectful people, and yet he keeps just pretending that this is the position.
Okay, let him talk here. Okay.
Now, with that said and out of the way, let's get on with the video. The evidence for evolution comes from every branch of science that remotely interacts with organisms. Everything.
Ooh. Did you catch that one?
A bit of a cut, weren't there?
Bit of a cut, yeah. And it's not going to be the only time they do it in this video, because what they've done is downloaded it,
They've downloaded it.
downloaded it, edited it, and then reprocessed it, and they're watching that. Now, normally this would actually be fine. In fact, it's what you yourself do. Because if you want to take just a point to respond to, and then skip a few bits, and then respond to another point later on, well, that's what you're going to do. What you don't do is cut sections out of the bit that you're responding to, and then play that whole bit with those cut sections removed and respond to it as if that's the whole video.
Yeah.
That's pretty dodgy.
Well, the thing is that with this example that they do here, it's not the end of the world.
No, not too much has been lost. Just a
However, this comes up 2 or 3 more times, so watch out for it. And the things that they cut are vital to the points I was making, and it just doesn't look good for them. I'm not going to say it's intentional, but that's quite a mistake.
Let's go with error for now.
Everything we objectively know about the natural world both supports and improves the theory of evolution by natural selection, whether we like it or not. This is 9 proofs of evolution, why evolution is true. Where to begin? Well, the first 2 lines of evidence that I'm going to present both come from the comparative anatomy of whales to land mammals. We've long known that despite whales looking like fish, they're mammals, because just like mammals and unlike fish, they give birth to live young, feed their young milk via their mammary glands, breathe through 2 lungs rather than gills, have skin and hair rather than skin and scales, and they're warm-blooded.
And that's proof for what?
You can't stop in the middle of a point to ask what the proof is, as Steve is about to say what it's evidence for.
Like, let me finish the point, and you'll know what I'm trying to make. That's...
I've got some drinks in the fridge. What's the point? I was going to offer you one.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man.
There's proof the whale's not a fish. I would agree with that.
I mean, by his logic, you could literally declare that ink pens and squids are related because they squirt ink.
You wouldn't have this tangent of trying to work out what Steve is saying if you just let Steve say what he was going to say.
Yeah, Matt, if you actually wanted to know what my logic was, should have just played the next 4 or 5 words.
I mean, you could declare that a cloud and a watermelon's related because both of them contain water. I mean, this is the type of logic that we're dealing with. This is the Bible actually says that there are all men have not faith, and that there are wicked and unreasonable men who have not faith. So the Bible says that the people who are unreasonable are the people who don't have faith in Christ. This is the most unreasonable thing I've ever heard in my life, that things are related just because they have similar characteristics.
Hang on. He's calling you a point which he hasn't yet heard is the most unreasonable thing he's ever heard.
I'll be honest with you, Reese. I think that's a little bit unreasonable.
Yeah, I think so too.
Also imagine saying that this is the most unreasonable thing you've ever heard in your life. Okay. All right, Karen.
I put Jesus riding dinosaurs.
Jesus riding dinosaurs? No, that's absolutely fine. That makes complete sense. Cutting someone off before they actually make the point, that's the strangest thing I've ever...
Perfectly
it's absurd. Like, I cannot believe it.
I'm still trying to figure out how they fit all them whales into a dot.
And what caused the explosion? Like
No,
I said,
it wasn't the rapid expansion.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Even though National Geographic says it was an explosion, scientific papers say
Right.
it was an explosion. They just butter it up to make it sound like it's not as kooky as it really is. When you say it was just a nice little expansion at the beginning, They're
is
trying to
kooky.
butter it up to make it sound like it's not as kooky as it really is. And if you're an atheist, I'm sorry, it does sound kooky. It does sound like something off Star Trek.
Do you know why? It's kooky. Yeah.
Right.
I would be interested in expanding more on what the Big Bang has to say, but this is what they want. They want to drive people that talk about evolution into the path of talking about the Big Bang. And I'm just not buying it, Matt, so we're not doing it for this video.
You dust it up as the Trinity to portray it as not as kooky as it really is.
Yes.
But Jesus being his own father is pretty kooky.
Yeah. Sacrificing yourself to have a loophole
To
in a
forgive
situation that you made. That's an expansion.
All right, I got to call somebody in 8 minutes here. Let me get to chime in here. I think you'll enjoy this.
Now, this alone strongly implies that they share a common ancestor with.
Wait. They share a common ancestry because the whale has.
No. The funniest bit there, where
Try it again.
they paused it again, it went common ancestor with.
No, hang on.
They share a common ancestor with cut.
Right, we're going to play
Common
you.
ancestor with what?
Yeah, we're going to play you what I actually said, and then we're going to hammer this.
Now, this alone strongly implies that they share a common ancestor with land mammals.
Common ancestor with land mammals. Wow. Those, what was that? 2 words?
2 words.
2 words. If they'd just played the 2 words,
Yeah.
they'd understand your point.
They would, and they cut it mid-sentence. And in doing so, they completely made it sound like I was saying something that I didn't. So what I originally did is I went, look, here's a whale and here's a shark. And if we look at their anatomy, they look very, very similar. And you can see why people have put them in the same category in the past. Yeah. However, what I did here is I went, look, if you take the whale and you look at and you take a real interest in its attributes, you'll find that what it has is a lot of these attributes which are more in common with land mammals because it's a mammal. And if you take a fish, you're going to find a lot of features that you're not going to find in whales. And as I was saying that point, they cut me off before I could say, with whales, what you find is these features in land mammals.
Strongly implies that they share a common ancestor with.
They cut me off to make it sound like I was making the point that whales and fish don't have these in common, therefore they're related.
Which makes absolutely no sense.
It makes absolutely no sense. And
now they're stuck talking about a thing that makes no sense.
Yeah.
Because they
So-
missed the rest of the sentence.
yeah, so just know that what they're about to be talking about is just not what I said.
They share a common ancestry because the whale has mammary glands and the shark doesn't. The fish lays eggs and the whale gives live birth. So this is proof they have a common ancestor?
No. It's evidence that whales and land mammals have a common ancestor.
I tell you what, mate, they would have known about that if they had let the next two,
2 words.
Could it be proof they both came from a really smart designer? I mean, they look pretty well designed. I mean, don't they do? They seem to do okay. They just will not tolerate that idea of a designer. It's not proof for evolution. I'm sorry, evolution, as he pronounces it.
Yes. Hi. We're English.
Land mammals. But what really makes this suggestion even more compelling, and what I'll offer as a first line of evidence, is the curious bone structure of their flippers. Within their flippers, whales have, just like the forelimbs of land mammals, finger, hand, wrist, and arm bone.
That's proof of something. Did you know?
Yeah, this is absolutely hilarious because this is going to happen so many more times through the video.
Yeah.
Is he pauses before Steve has completed his point to ask what Steve's point is.
And he phrases my point as something that it wasn't. Let's again play what I actually said.
Within their flippers, whales have, just like the forelimbs of land mammals, finger, hand, wrist, and arm bones, which can be easily explained if these bones are repurposed forelimbs, but are remarkably hard to explain if they're not. As after all, these bones have very little in common with non-mammalian fins, and yet a great deal in common with the forelimbs of land mammals.
That is fascinating, right?
Yeah.
Like, that is a great piece of evidence for evolution by natural selection. It's precisely what you would expect to see if evolution was true, and it's quite puzzling if you're a creationist. But he didn't let that play out, and so his audience doesn't know about it, and he makes out that I make a different point.
Did you know the Chevys and the Fords both have 4 tires and a steering wheel? That's proof of something to somebody. Is that proof of common ancestor?
Earlier, Matt gave us an awesome bit of research, didn't he? So he Googled the definition. Let's do this,
yeah,
right?
He's a big fan of Google, Matt.
He likes a bit of Google. So what we do is we're going to Google Ancestor. All right? We're going to get a definition. Now, what we do next, this is the map technique, is we find the one that we want, which is this one. And it says Ancestor, an early version of a machine system, etc. So I guess
that's perfect, actually.
Yeah.
In fact, that fits in very, very nicely with the car analogy Ken
Yeah.
so graciously presented there.
Yeah, thanks, man.
You can actually say modern cars, share a common ancestor. That's perfectly reasonable. If you take a modern car and all of the design features you will find inside that, you can trace it back to 1916 with the Cadillac Type 53. It had in the middle a gear stick and handbrake. It had the 3 pedals in the order that you have today, and it had the first car to have a key start ignition. Since 1916, that design has stuck, or that template has stuck, and what we've seen is iterations on that template. So we've seen, more recently, we've seen keyless ignition with the push starts. We've seen automatic cars. We've seen diesel rather than petrol engines.
Mm-hmm.
But they all stick with that template, little variations of, and we have, if you want to say, evolved the car template. And we've had them run parallel to each other. So we have the 2 species of cars, automatic and manual, run alongside, but they all go back to that common ancestor.
So first thing to be said is that he's a mechanic. That's why he knows this stuff, all right? Second thing to be said is that I took Matt's advice again and I Googled evolve, and the one that I like here is develop gradually. So we're good here.
Which can be easily explained if these bones are repurposed forelimbs.
It can also easily be explained if the same designer designed everything. What's this guy's name?
Rationality rules.
That's not his name, though.
That's what he goes. This is his fantasy name. They all have fantasy
Oh,
names.
okay. Fantasy name.
Fantasy name. All right, Dr. Hovind.
I know, it's so fair of them to call it a fantasy name when you've got a man here whose doctorate is mail order from an uncredited university that's not recognised by the state that he's in. That's about as much meaning as Steve or I claiming to have one. Let's see in our box of cereal here.
Oh boy, gonna get me one, dude. I got one.
Steve won from a box of cereal a PhD
Oh my goodness, I'm so
in
happy.
trubology.
This is amazing. Like, this is my new fantasy name.
He's rational? Okay.
But are remarkably hard to explain if they're not. And to invoke a second line of evidence, whales have strange bones that look like shriveled hip, thigh, and shin bones where land mammals have hind legs.
We talked about that many times on our program. We have one in the museum. Damien, you show that to people, right? The whale. The whale. Vestigial pelvis. Mr. Rationality rules. That is part of the whale's reproductive system. Whales are really big. Okay, like really big. They got to mate in the dark, underwater, with no arms, and they can't talk and say "scoot over, honey." They have to have special apparatus to move things around to make them line up. Nothing to do with walking on land. Do some research on whale anatomy.
Just a quick question, Reese. Do you use your shin when having sex?
I thought everyone did.
What a dumb evidence for evolution.
And some of these bones, such as these from a bonehead whale, even have what appears to be a ball and socket joint.
Yeah, whoa. Like, that's absolutely not
Like,
what you would expect to
actually
see.
whoa.
Yeah, actually, whoa. Like, if you've got something that resembles and looks like a bone and socket joint in a hip.
And it's so frustrating that he skips past that, because that
That is something.
amazing
Yeah,
point.
yeah. Like, you look at the hips in other mammals. Do they have a ball and socket joint in it?
Further still, paleontologists have found numerous species within the fossil record that have unique similarities with whales. To present
Oh, we got it again.
This is like, okay, this is the first cut where it, well, for me, I think this is quite,
I'm not going to say it's the worst. It's one of the worst.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, this is where a good example of a cut where It's pretty telling. Let me play actually what I said and what he removed.
Paleontologists have found numerous species within the fossil record that have unique similarities with whales, but also varying sizes of hind legs. Now, once again, these bones make perfect sense if they're vestigial and or repurposed, but they're very peculiar if they're not. Talking of vestigial...
It's amazing that they talk about unreasonableness.
It really is, because that's the point, right? When I presented the whale's pelvis, I gave 2 explanations of why you would expect to see this with evolution by natural selection. They removed both of those parts. That's not cool.
With whales. To present a third line of evidence, a superb example can be found in all mammals, including you, and it's called the left recurrent laryngeal nerve.
There's a long article about this on answersingenesis.org. Frank Sherwin's a good friend of mine there. It works, not ICR.org. He works there at ICR. There's a reason that nerve goes all the way down around like that. We'll do that some other day.
We'll do it another day.
You know this rebuttal we're doing right now.
Should we do it another
Let's
time?
just do it another day, man. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks for the views. Just tune in another day and we'll do this rebuttal.
Yeah, we won't tell you when either.
No, we won't tell you when.
Okay. He had talked about anatomy being evidence for evolution.
Yeah, I didn't say that.
What, you didn't say that anatomy is evidence for evolution?
Funny enough, I didn't say that anatomy is just straight up evidence for evolution. What I was talking about is the laryngeal nerve. Now, Hovind spends, I'm not joking, 10 minutes on a rant now about the human eye.
Yeah, it's going to get
So
quite
I just
long.
want to really get this on the table. In fact, you know what? I'll just play the clip so you can see the point I was making. But bear in mind that this doesn't make it into his video. There's a 10-minute break.
Yeah, it's not going to be there for a while yet.
Without getting too technical, this nerve runs from the brain to the voice box, which should be a distance of a few inches. But instead, it goes down into the chest, loops around a main artery, and then goes back up to the voice box, which in the case of the giraffe results in a 15-foot detour.
So that's the point I was illustrating. I was saying that we have this nerve, and it makes sense if it evolved in fish because it's the quickest pathway to get there. And then we evolved, mammals coming from fish, and you see this really weird design where it needs to go from here to about here. And what it does is it comes down all the way down the neck, loops around a main artery, and then goes all the way back up. What intelligent designer would do this?
Well, probably one of these two, to be
A
honest.
15-foot detour in a giraffe's neck.
So I put together just a couple things. If you think anatomy, I thought maybe I already missed him using that word here. If you think anatomy is evidence for evolution, let's see here. The human eyeball is really complex. Every single cell in your body is complex, but the eyeball is amazing. Okay, when you study just the human eye, Psalm 194, he that the ear shall he not hear, he that formed the eye shall he not see. You know how many different kinds of eyes there are? And they all serve the critter just fine.
So I just want to pause this lecture of how amazing the eye is and how it's obviously made by a god being lectured to us from someone wearing glasses.
And they serve everyone, including myself, perfectly fine.
Perfectly
And the
fine. I
blind,
love the
perfectly
glasses.
fine,
Yeah, great. Let's talk about the eyes of moles. Because you have in moles eyes that are covered with skin and fur.
The only thing it can see through them is the difference between light and dark.
Yeah, and it's like bearded dragons, right? I've got a bearded dragon, wonderful creatures. They have a sensitive spot on top of their head that's evolved so that they can just detect shadow. It's a very basic eye. It's like the first eyes that would have evolved. And the reason they have it is so that when birds go above, they can go, right, there's a predator, I'm going to get under a rock, essentially. They get scared. If you saw that in a mole, because all it needs to do is detect a bit of light and dark, then fair enough, that would be great.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's fully developed, well,
Eyes.
it actually has degraded quite a bit, but the fact that you actually have eyes, that makes much more sense if they are descended from land mammals that also have eyes, right?
Yeah, and just to tangent a little bit here, because they always jump to eyes when they want to talk about how well designed something is. Steve, have you ever heard of the Babirusa?
Lay it on us.
No? It's an Indonesian pig, and this pig grows horns, and over time, that horn curls up and pierces its skull and into its brain and kills itself. Brilliant, right? Great design. What about the hyena? You know anything about the hyena?
No.
What about the fact it gives birth through what's sort of a pseudo penis, of which the birth canal is only an inch across. A design that frequently suffocates the babies and or kills the mother. Great design.
It's like before. It's brilliant. Even in humans, before the Enlightenment, before the scientific revolution, the statistical likelihood that the mother and the child would die when giving birth was ridiculously high. That's the natural state of things. That's what God intended. Brilliant. but just knowing a little bit about his other creatures that he designed, such as all of these horrible viruses, allowed us to emancipate ourselves from what he intended us to suffer through. He sounds like the devil.
They're all designed. You know, Chevy designed some vehicles to be passenger cars, station wagons, minivans, trucks, all on a similar frame, I bet.
Ken, you really like your car analogies, so allow me to give you one. Comparing it to the mole, as Steve gave earlier. It'd be like designing a car with blackout curtains over the headlights. Genius.
And all four wheels, some six wheels. Scars of evolution. Did I say it right? Rationality? Okay.
Yes.
We're English.
Blood vessels that sprawl across the retina's inner surface. Inner surface blood vessels. All kinds of different eyes. They all use this as evidence for evolution. Now, Charlie said, to suppose the eye could have been formed by natural selection seems, I freely confess, absurd.
Quite interestingly, and by interestingly I mean Kent really should stop doing this, that is a quote mine. If you look at the context of when he said that, where he says that, and you look at what he says immediately afterwards, wait, that's what he did to me. Immediately afterwards.
Just because it's absurd, we shouldn't dismiss it. It is exactly what Darwin's point is.
Yeah, I like that. You see, he's been doing this for a while, haven't you, Ken?
Really good at missing the end of it.
Has he got a
and I'd like to remind people here. Steve was talking about the laryngeal nerve. And we're not there anymore.
Remember, I was talking about the nerve, all right? And instead, we're talking about this. I do want to just say that I've Googled his doctorate. He's got a doctorate in misrepresentation. That's really cool. That's really good.
What we're going to do now is we're going to skip ahead. And that's because they spend another few minutes talking about the eye. And obviously, I've decided to let you know here that we're skipping ahead.
Yeah.
So you can check the full video out if you wish.
I was going to say, like, we should have just downloaded their video and then seemingly made it look like they didn't have a 10-minute rant on the eye.
Oh, yeah.
But we want to get back to, well, there's a couple of bits that we want to make comments on, but really we want to get back to the laryngeal nerve because that's what I was talking about.
There we go.
Yes, hello.
Here, got you live, Bill, on the air.
Good evening.
Good evening, brother. You have spent a lifetime studying health, and your website, knowledgeofhealth.com, is amazing. And you answer a lot of people's question about health, but you really have specialized quite a bit in health of the eye. You are in your mid-70s and still have 20/20 vision and wear no glasses. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Tell us how to have healthy eyes and how the eye could not possibly have evolved. Or do you believe in evolution?
I haven't seen the evidence for evolution.
So then, Steve, what he's just done here is he's called a nutritionist to talk about how incredible the eye is as evidence that there's no evidence for evolution.
Let me
Amazing.
Let me even the score. I think this will put the world right.
Steve, how's it going, man?
Hey, Thomas. So we're responding to two creationists right now, and I just wanted to know whether or not you've seen evidence for evolution.
Sure, man. Loads.
Fantastic. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it. Bye.
Or do you believe in evolution?
I haven't seen the evidence for evolution, but I think we always need to be honest with ourselves and say that we're willing to examine all the evidence, but from what I can find, and I'm supposed to be a person that looks at science, I can't see any evidence for it.
Me neither. Nope. Tell me about the human eyeball. How complicated is it?
They're still talking about the eye, so we'll cut again.
Yeah.
We just wanted to.
Yeah.
If you want to swap eyes with an octopus, you go ahead, but you'll be blind living in the air in a couple days. I'm sorry. You're mistaken.
And rationality rules will probably end up responding to this video.
Sure.
But I want to make a challenge to him, since we're talking about the eye, and we're talking about the octopi and the squids and so forth and sea life. Their conclusion in Progress in Biophysics and Molecular Biology, the 2018 journal, peer-reviewed paper, by the way, states that octopi and squids are extraterrestrial origins from outer space. If you're a Darwinist, you have to believe, this is what you have to believe, because they couldn't have evolved by Darwinian means.
And it's in a peer-reviewed journal.
It's in a peer-reviewed journal.
Got to be true.
That's
Gotta
the
be true.
Bible
Yeah.
to them.
Yeah.
That it's extraterrestrial imports from outer space that hitched a ride on a comet and flew and crashed. They made a crash landing.
Keep going.
The octopi and squid. You have to defend that.
Ooh, we have to defend that, Steve. It's in a peer-reviewed paper,
Matt, when you say things like this as confidently as you just did, you're not serving yourself very well, right? Because look, atheism is you could put it this way, right? You could either say it's a lack of belief in God, or you could say it's a proposition that there are no gods. Is there anything in that? Like, you can define it. We do what he says. We can define it, right? We define atheist, deaf, right? Let's bring it up. A person who disbelieves or lacks belief in the existence of God or gods, right?
Yeah, I mean, a Google search would have done you, Matt.
Google would have done you, right? But the thing is that I don't know about you, but I don't hear anything about octopus coming from space in that definition.
No.
Now,
there's a frustration with how he represents the peer-reviewed paper there as well.
Yeah.
He says, just because this peer-reviewed paper's been published, all of science agrees that this is truth. That's what he's presented as there.
This is something that someone who hasn't read many peer-reviewed papers would say, right? Because in peer-reviewed papers, what you find is lots of contradictory hypotheses and theories. The point of them being expressed in this is to try and get through and go, here's my idea, here's how I account for the evidence. One thing that we struggle with is if you look at the past with biology, you find that in the Cambrian explosion, you get just basically so much diversity of life and very, very complex life very, very quickly. And it's difficult to figure out what's going on there because it happened 500 million years ago. And so you're going to have varying hypotheses. Stephen Jay Gould has a hypothesis on this. Now, what these people in this paper were giving as a hypothesis is the idea that eggs, not fully formed octopus and squid on a comet, but the idea that you would have, this goes back to Fred Hoyle. It comes back to Fred Hoyle, where you have panspermia. Panspermia is the theory that life got here from other parts of space. And it's something that's taken seriously in the literature. Lots of people do believe it, lots of people don't believe it, but there's nothing in atheism that makes it so that you need to believe that.
There's also nothing of a consensus of this being true.
No, the authors themselves, there's 30 authors or so, they say this is controversial. They know it's controversial.
This paper is controversial.
They know it's controversial, and it's like, fair enough, right? They're just throwing something out. They go, look, one way we could explain why we have this explosion is if at that point, that's when panspermia took place, if it took place at all. Like, fair enough, that's a decent hypothesis. Let's test it. Turns out it's not very, very good, because if you take squid and you take octopus and you look at their genetic DNA and you try and figure out when they diverged, it's about 100 to 130 million years ago, which is a lot after the Cambrian explosion, which was 500 million years ago.
The octopi and squid, you have to defend that. And so when we talk about things, you could either believe that in the beginning God created the earth, or you could believe that 3-point-whatever billion years ago, squids and octopi crash landed to earth and reproduced. And
you can believe that, or you can believe this. Steve, where's your black and white cup? There we go. There's the debunk deck. Right.
I said earlier that if we get 250 sales, right? 250 sales. Oh, this race. I said earlier that if we get 250 sales, that I'll send one of these to Matt. And hopefully this encourages everyone to go, you know what, let's do this.
Yeah, Matt, you're going to take note of this card, Matt.
Yeah. when you get
It's
this,
somewhere
Matt,
in the deck.
you need to put this on your wall, I reckon, basically. Would you say wall? I'd say
There it
wall.
is.
Here we go. It's a black and...
We're competent.
Yeah, we're competent. It's a black and white fallacy, all right? There we go. It says, either the pyramids were built by aliens or they were built by random chance. I guess
That's literally
that's
what
the
you've
only
just
two
done.
options you've got. Matt's version would be, either you must defend extraterrestrial octopi, or you must believe that God created the heavens and the earth, blah, 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 whatever fiction, go. No, man. There's a third option. There's a fourth option.
There's several options.
And it doesn't make any sense because squids and octopuses are enemies with each other. So somehow they made a truce and landed on the same comet and then crash landed and became
They
mortal
both
enemies.
rode the comet all the way. And did they land in the water? I mean, what if they would have landed on land and they can't walk very far on land before they die, you know? Right. That's going to be tough.
At least they didn't hit those surfing monkeys.
It's a good thing they didn't hit the surfing monkeys. I never thought of that. Yep. How did they survive re-entry? It gets pretty warm coming in. You know?
Why do they have ceramic rationality rules? Why did they have ceramic tiles on the space shuttle? It's to keep it from burning up when it comes into our atmosphere. If we grant your theory to be true and squids and octopi are whole,
Your theory? We grant your theory. Steve, what
My
did you
theory.
propose?
I was talking about a nerve in the
Laryngeal
neck.
nerve.
And now my theory is somehow
Do you
extraterrestrial.
remember that 10 minutes ago?
Oh, that was 10 minutes ago. Matt, you're drunk. Go home.
if we grant your theory to be true and squids and octopi are holding onto this comet and it's shooting down towards planet Earth out of all the other planets in the solar system, they would have been roasted octopi by the time they hit the atmosphere.
Matt, if you read what you link, like read the paper, you'll see that they don't say that there was adult octopi on comets. Like, just read what you're telling us about. Just read my theory.
So it's
Some
just
people
easy
need octopus.
classification.
Okay, that's right. Anyway, they're trying to say God wouldn't do it this way, so it must have evolved. The blood vessels in front. That's a silly argument for evolution. Okay, let's get to more rationality rules here.
Finally, we're back at the nerve.
Back.
I'm excited. I'm not going to lie. Let's do
Yeah, I'm
this.
ready for this. Let's see what they have
Yeah.
to actually say on your argument now they're there.
Right there. And
Without getting too technical, this nerve runs from the brain to the voice box, which should be a distance of a few inches. But instead, it goes down into the chest, loops around the main artery, and then goes back up to the voice box, which in the case of the giraffe results in a 15-foot detour. But if, on the other hand,
Oh, that's such an important bit to cut. Oh, you can't cut that. There's such an important demonstration in there.
That's the most important part of the point that I was expressing. We'll play what I originally put, and then we'll come back to this.
in animals without a neck, such as fish, the most direct route for this nerve is indeed by navigating round the artery. And hence, if mammals evolved from fish-like ancestors, we can easily explain why this absurd design exists.
So as you can see from that animation, it shows the very point I was making, and that is that if this evolved in fish, and that was the quickest pathway, and then fish evolved into mammals, which evolution by natural selection, the evidence indicates, then what you have is a reason for why giraffes have this, why mammals have this, why we have it. Think about this. It goes from here, round an artery, and then all the way back up, which again, in a giraffe, takes a 15-foot detour. That's not clever. That's not a good design. But that is exactly what you would expect to see if evolution is true. In fact, you could call it a prediction. It's a prediction that we would see things like this. But what Ken and Matt have done is they've cut out, again,
The point.
The point. So they cut...
So they've cut about 15 seconds that demonstrate a significant portion of the context for your argument.
Yeah.
Like, both visual demonstration showing how that nerve is stretched over the evolution of the creature.
Yep.
As well as you actually saying that to them.
It really is amazing. What I've done is I've said, look, here is the recurrent laryngeal nerve from here, going down over an artery, back up. This is something you'd expect to see if evolution is true. And what Kent has done is paused me, had a 10-minute rant about the human eye, phoned a nutritionist
See, actually, yeah, I've even
It's a
missed that bit
nutritionist,
just
right?
happening. But
Phoned a nutritionist to tell him that the eye is too complicated, and now he's come
Come
back
back 10
and he's
minutes
making
later.
out that I didn't say anything to do with the nerve. What I've said is that anatomy proves evolution is true.
and then skip to the bit where you discuss why
Yeah.
this aspect of a giraffe's anatomy
Yeah.
is evidence for.
results in a 15-foot detour. But if, on the other hand, we want to insist that it was deliberately created this way by a designer, then, well, we
Well, now hold it. Do automobiles and manufacturers ever produce vehicles that have a goof in them and they have to do a recall?
Yeah.
Does that mean nobody's designing it?
Yes, car manufacturers do make mistakes and have to do recall. Does God make mistakes, Mr. Kent?
Yeah, does God make
Does
mistakes?
God make mistakes?
Such as this nerve and have to make a recall.
Because I can't, and make
Yeah.
a recall, which I suppose is a species going extinct, I guess.
But the giraffe's not extinct. So, I mean, it's just
But what he's
fantastic.
what he's tried to do there with an analogy is say, do manufacturers of machines make mistakes? If they do, it's okay that God makes mistakes in biology. That's how I understand his point there. Maybe
what would be an
maybe I'm
analogy of
misrepresenting.
this ridiculous mistake or need for a recall with mechanics?
Well, he's very, very fond of mechanics, obviously. So picture an 18-wheeler maybe, and you've got to get your connection from your gas pedal to your engine so you can accelerate. But let's connect it from the pedal all the way to the last set of wheels and then all the way back to the engine. That is the laryngeal nerve.
Now, in the case of this nerve you're talking about, there's a good reason that's that way, and we'll cover a whole dual program on that some other time.
It would- Again, they'll talk about the laryngeal nerve another time. One of Steve's most important points.
I actually think
Another time.
it seems to me quite clear that Kent is actually pretty scared of this evidence for evolution, because he spent 10 minutes to get us off the track. He said twice that we'll just deal with it another time. No, Ken, you're meant to be like debunking me right now, right? So like,
And now he's going to go to prison to avoid talking about it as well.
But if it was a mistake as you think it was, it doesn't mean God's a dunce. It means you don't understand why he did it that way. And there's a good reason. See, the giraffe has to bend down to get a drink.
What's this got to do with the laryngeal nerve?
Is he saying that you've got the nerve so that it stops your head from blowing up?
That's what
When
I'm
you
saying.
go-
That's what it sounds like to me.
But fish have this nerve as well, and they don't go down at all.
I also want to ask how this nerve prevents blood. It's a nerve. How does that
Any
prevent
evidence for this,
blood-
anything whatsoever? This is the he does not like this nerve. This nerve gets on Kent's nerves. Like, I think that is fair to say. And to be fair to Kent and Matt, I get it. This is very, very good evidence for evolution. So I can see why you're not all that interested in address. Do you reckon when they do their video, when they address it, they go, "Join us next time when we
Yeah,
actually."
join us another time.
Yeah, he's got a special cushion under his brain to absorb the blood impact. It'd blow his brains out when he bent down. Somebody said, why do giraffes have such a long neck? Because they got long legs. They couldn't get a drink if they didn't have a long neck.
Giraffe have long necks because they've got long legs.
Right?
Right.
Right,
That's
okay.
a good point.
So
Yeah.
it's a safety device, basically.
Yeah, we'll get into that later.
certainly can't call this designer intelligent.
Rationality, I call him incredibly intelligent, and every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess. You're going to bow and confess that Jesus Christ is Lord to the glory of God the Father someday. We'd like to see you do it now before you die, because then things are all different. Then you get in the family.
So this is something we're going to have to get a little bit more serious here, because what Kent is doing here is what happens a lot with these apologists and pastors. What he's saying is that you don't believe in the same set of propositions that we do, and so you're going to know about it when you die, where meek and mild Jesus is going to cast you into the fires forever and ever. There's so much that can be said about this, but first of all, it's just a threat, and it's just like, grow up, Kent. The second thing to be said on top of that is an all-powerful God would know everything, and an all-loving God would love his creatures, right? Atheists have to be as God created them.
Yeah.
And I spend day in and day out reading way more theology than Kent can even name, right? And I'm just not convinced. Again, as Blaise Pascal put it, I am so made as not to believe.
You often find atheists have probably read more of the Bible than most Christians, and have usually then read more of the stuff that can refute parts of the Bible as well.
Yes.
Which is why they can understand where things like evolution, that has significantly more evidence behind it than God created the world in 7 days.
And again, you can believe in evolution and still believe in a God, right?
Of course.
But there was I forget his name. There's an awesome American that he said the best way to get someone to be an atheist is to get them to read the Bible.
Yeah,
and that's just true. But what's happening here is the idea that an all-powerful, all-loving God would forever forsake, like eternal, infinite forsaken outcome towards somebody who earnestly is searching for them. It's just absurd in the highest degree. It's completely ridiculous. No loving being, let alone all loving being, would do something so obviously immoral. And I think this is actually one of the biggest nails in the coffin for Christianity, because it's so obviously nonsense that just wouldn't happen. Bertrand Russell spoke about this. He said when he was young, he used to like Jesus, and then he just, as he got older, he realized, no, I can't like Jesus at all. And it's really because he brought hell into it, right? You don't have it in the Torah. You don't have it with Judaism. And hell is just absurd. It's completely ridiculous. And so when Christian pastors use it as like a threat, like, just grow up, Ken. Like, Jesus Christ.
But if you believe you have proof of evolution, you are mistaken. There is no evidence. The whale's bone in his pelvis is not a hip bone. Part of the reproductive system. Do some studying, sir.
Now, the fourth and fifth lines of evidence that I'm going to present both come from DNA sequencing, which, for those of you unaware, is the process of determining the precise order of nucleotides within a DNA molecule, which, put simply, means that we can compare the DNA of one organism to another, and in doing so, see exactly how closely related they are.
Whoa. That's another cut.
So,
that's a big cut. He's cut loads. What is he?
Let's see how much he's cut. So,
and in doing so, see exactly how closely related they are. Needless to say, by doing this, we have made many outstanding discoveries. But perhaps the most extraordinary, and what I offer as a fourth line of evidence, is that all living things are related, and that therefore all living things share a common ancestor.
Yeah, so the statement of what Steve is about to begin talking about is gone. So they've lost the context of what Steve is about to present.
They've cut the context. And it's like, great. You've made it so that my point isn't what I was expressing. The thing is that if atheist content did this to religious content, immediately the atheist audience would point it out and go, that's very, very dishonest, fix it. But for some reason, this doesn't happen in a lot of religious circles. It doesn't matter, because as long as they're serving the truth, and the truth means doing whatever you can to serve the Lord, it's okay to take any kind of immoral behavior such as this. And it's like, guys, really? Cutting content again?
If there are DNA similarities, does that prove evolutionary ancestry?
It's just a glorified example of what he gave earlier. But now he's going into the microscopic realm and saying, well, see, since there's similarities here, we conclude it's literally the same rhetoric, the same stuff that we just debunked. These are the same tired old arguments that we've heard from you atheists for years.
How many books are in my library, would you guess? Pick a number, somebody. Thousands. Yeah. Okay. I'd be willing to bet $5 that nearly all of them are made from the same 26 letters of the alphabet. That proves nobody wrote them. That's their rationality.
Seriously, of the DNA that is comparable, you share 97% with a chimpanzee, 80% with a cow, 60% with a fruit fly, and 50% with a banana.
Wait a minute. What DNA barcodes are you looking at? Are you looking at endogenous retroviruses? What is this study based off of? I'd like to know.
So we're not looking at parts of DNA. We're looking at DNA as a whole.
Well, this would be like comparing my books and saying this book used the letter A, 2% of the time. And this book over here used the letter A 2.1% of the time. So Therefore, they're related. So 97%, by the way, that number is not correct anymore. They've got it down to like 91% now.
It depends.
Well, hang on.
Yeah.
Even if it's 91%, that's still significant.
Yeah, that's like going, they got the laryngeal nerve wrong. It's now 14 foot detour in a giraffe. It's not 15.
Therefore, they're wrong.
God doesn't need to do a recall. We're fine.
But even if it was 100% similar DNA, it's still, go look at a monkey, son. They're not human.
It doesn't falsify our model. Our model is still consistent, even if we granted that and said,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, everything's related, or not everything's related, but everything has the same amount of similar DNA. Okay, fine. Our model would still fit that. So present something else.
Yeah.
Now, most of us have heard this fact before and treated it like it's just a bit of trivia, including myself. But it's far more than this. It's unimpeachable proof that all living things share a common ancestor.
Unimpeachable proof? Are you even willing to consider that maybe this is unimpeachable proof of a common designer? They are awfully complicated. That little molecule you're talking about is more complicated than the space shuttle.
So, let's get the common designer thing out of the way quickly, shall we? I've got, well, quite a lot of board games. I really quite like collecting them. I quite like playing lots of different ones.
Yeah.
I've got loads and loads of different ones. Do you know what they don't share? A common designer. Do you know what they do share? A common ancestor.
Yes, they do.
Games like chess. Things like that have created ideas in people's head to create entertainment.
Hey, man.
Things like Debunked.
Yeah.
This lot, they all share a common ancestor. They do not share a common designer, despite all of their similarities.
Do you want to know something else was weird? I didn't create this game on my own. I had help. And that is the same with all of these games. So what he's doing, really, maybe see if I'm accurately representing what you're saying here, Reese. Are you saying that Kent's making an argument for polytheism?
Oh, you could absolutely have polytheism. If you go with these must be designed because they share similarities, well, there's no reason you couldn't have multiple designers all coming up with similar ideas.
One of the things we're supposed to be able to do in science is to make falsifiable predictions. When you say it's unimpeachable proof, that means it's not falsifiable. You need to present something that's falsifiable for it to be science.
Sure, not science. It's a religion. Okay.
And the second line of evidence from DNA that I'll present, and the fifth within this video, is that the closest living relative to cetaceans, which is a class that includes whales, is the hippopotamus, a land mammal that just so happens to share many.
Hold it.
What's that?
A whale and a hippo are related?
So a whale is just a little, a hippo is just a little whale out of water. That's how they should think of themselves.
Have you seen the
right?
tail on a hippopotamus? Have you seen the tail on a whale?
Very rare commonalities with cetaceans. For example, both mammals are nearly hairless.
That's just brilliant.
That's proof they're related. I think. What happened? I had a bowling ball under here that is completely hairless.
So does that mean they were also related to
Matter of fact, hey, wait a minute.
Right.
I think my globe is completely hairless. God is turning into a whale. I never thought of that. Thank you so much.
The sixth line.
Oh, bloody hell, I can't take any more of this. No, I'm out. I'm done. That's just...
See you later, mate.
What are they doing?
That's a cutout.
That's 30 odd seconds.
They've cut 30 seconds
Oh!
where I actually make my point. Wait, so they...
There's so much, because what you're talking about here now is all of the comparisons.
Yeah.
Why are they so similar?
I'm saying
and
these
why
are
they
really
related?
similar, and so we predict... Yeah.
And what they do is go, oh, they're nearly hairless. Ha, 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 ha. Oh, is that what you've got? And then move on.
Gosh, it's like they think that I would present the fact that because cetaceans and hippos are hairless, it follows that they're related.
Missing all of the other
of the other things that I list, which we'll play in a second. And on top of that, I can't believe they cut that.
There should be no reason now for anyone to assume anything other than dishonesty.
Yeah, that's just absolutely dishonest. I think I mean, I just hope God doesn't recognize that as just complete dishonesty. Unbelievable.
That is infuriating.
That is impressively stupid.
And you can see it, though.
That's just brilliant.
You can see it in the video, because obviously you've got this... How did they actually even put that in that video like that? Because you can see Steve start to list, and then they've cut it to move to the next point.
Yeah, and they couldn't... It's not... Yeah,
it's not even a good edit.
They didn't even hide it, right? So let's... Let's watch what I actually said.
Disgusting.
That is disgusting. Let's watch what I said.
For example, both mammals are nearly hairless, do not have sweat glands, have remarkably thick bones, are encased in dense fat, have multi-chambered stomachs, give birth to their young underwater, feed their young underwater, and communicate with their kin underwater. Now, all of these similarities once again make perfect sense if cetaceans and hippos share a common ancestor, as their DNA screams, let alone suggests. But if they didn't evolve from a common ancestor, then all of these similarities are one hell of a coincidence, and DNA is the greatest troll in history.
You see just how much was cut there. The entire point of, here's all their similarities, they share significant amounts of DNA, evolution by natural selection predicts that they'd share these similarities if they have this DNA.
Yeah.
And you cut all of that. Oh, it's so infuriating. I'm angry.
I mean, I'll be just transparent. I think that they've done this deliberately. And it's because if you cut it the way that they did, you're able to laugh, because you're able to go, oh, Steve thinks that the fact that cetaceans and hippos don't have hair, that's why they're related. That's not why I think they're related. Why I think they're related is that despite cetaceans living in the sea, and looking on the surface to be a fish, basically, when you actually analyze them, you realize they have a lot of traits which are they're mammalian, right?
Yeah.
And so what this predicts is that they have a common ancestor with mammals, and that's the point I was making there. This is exactly what you would expect to see.
It's such an obvious point that you can only ignore.
Yes.
If you don't want to deal with
it. To cut that part out is a strategic move, as far as I can see. Like, they would have to cut that out to make out that I was making a point that I wasn't making. And
it's such an obvious cut.
It's very, very sad that the audience, these people that idolize Ken, and they're paying attention and love and money to people like Ken and Matt. Unfortunately, they're not recognizing that, look, if you think that atheists are that stupid, if you think that most Christians are that stupid, who accept evolution by natural selection, you've got to start thinking, hang on, am I missing something here? And is the source that's feeding me deliberately omitting information? Because this is like, what, the fourth time they've cut the most important part? Come on, guys, you gotta use your head. God gave you a brain for something, right? And
that one's especially egregious. And anyone who was watching that at the time, you can see the cut, because you can see Steve starting to list the similarities, and they get one out the door and then move on to a whole new thing. You can see it in the video that they've skipped it. And I can't believe anyone in their own audience would sit there and go, hang on, but what else did he have to say on this?
And they like to talk about the devil being deceptive.
Evidence that I present is the artificial selection of domestic dogs. It's no secret that most breeds of dog have the specific traits that they do because humans have deliberately or artificially selected which dogs get to reproduce.
I would agree. I would say all the dogs had a common ancestor. It looked like a dog. Okay. God said they bring forth after their kind. If you put put that chart up there, and next to it put an apple and a banana and a bird, and say, okay, to a 5-year-old, which ones don't belong in this group? They would leave the wolf in there, wouldn't they? Same kind.
So if you was to put a chihuahua, a fox, and a wolf, and you ask the kid to point out which one doesn't belong, they're going to point out the chihuahua. And yet, you want to point out the fox.
Yeah, because the other two can actually.
So the idea that you've got all of this evolution, you've got all of this like science that's backed up from just so much science, it's insane. The idea that no, you just need to go to a child's intuition. Great.
Yeah, getting your information of how the world works from a child might not be the greatest of ideas.
Maybe.
Same kind.
And in doing so, which traits are passed on to subsequent generations.
And most of the dogs they've developed with all this work and stuff they've done are completely useless. My wife's the pug dog. Chasing a parked car and caught it. Caved the nose right in. So completely useless.
What does the dog being useless have to do with not proving evolution?
Nothing. Like, I mean, I guess the idea is if you artificially select something, you can select it so that it won't actually survive very well in nature, right? Mm-hmm. But the thing is if you've got like a greyhound and you select it as we have so that they can run really, really, really fast, and then say there's an apocalypse and we're gone, and it turns out that you need to be very, very fast to be an apex predator, they're going to be very, very useful.
For example, greyhounds have powerful legs, deep chests, flexible spines, and slim builds because humans have deliberately bred dogs with these attributes. The same is true of the tiny height of chihuahuas. They are the result of humans breeding smaller and smaller dogs.
How long would the chihuahuas last out in the woods? Rationality.
It might last a long time because everything else might laugh at them and die themselves.
Great. On the tour today, we saw a hawk, nearly hit it. I bet the hawk would have chihuahua for lunch. It wouldn't last one day.
If the fact that a chihuahua would get eaten by a hawk is an argument that a chihuahua wouldn't exist from natural evolution, how do you explain rabbits?
Yeah, rabbits.
Because they do get eaten by hawks.
They do get eaten by hawks, and they're just fine. In fact, they breed like rabbits. That's their survival tactic, and they do absolutely fine.
And the same is also true of the giant height of Great Danes.
How long would the Great Danes last out in the woods?
They probably do pretty good.
Probably a little longer, but they still got, you got to babysit them, you got to feed them.
The thing is that he's saying this as if, like, because it doesn't have the survivability, it somehow isn't evolution. No, it is evolution. You can have sexual evolution. It's not necessarily for just pure survival. It's for sexual survival. You can have artificial selection, as, you know, perfectly fine, right?
But what you were trying to do by bringing artificial into this video was to demonstrate that we can see evolution occurring when we force it.
Yeah.
We can force a change of traits by selecting them ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I find that alone to be significant evidence for evolution.
Well, as far as evolution goes, which is biological change over generations, artificial selection is brilliant evidence of that. Like, fantastic evidence of it. It's in fact,
it's about the perfect evidence for it.
It is perfect for it, right? What you then need to do is explain how this can happen without a mind, humans, choosing which traits survive. Well, if nature chooses because of pressures in nature, otherwise
environmental factors, essentially, isn't it? It's going to be like temperature changes, abundance of food, predators, all of these things will then play into which traits get selected going forward. Obviously, artificial selection, it's been, I want a smaller dog, or I want one with a bigger nose, or I want one with red fur.
Yeah, one that's more agreeable. You know? But the thing is like, you mentioned all these things about how nature can select, right? That's what they call it, isn't it? It's natural selection.
Natural selection, yeah.
Natural selection.
They are the result of humans breeding bigger and bigger dogs.
Right. Okay, rationality. Are there any limits to this? You got a Chihuahua and a Great Dane. Do you think they'll ever get a dog as big as an elephant?
Given a few million years, entirely possible. I mean, I know you were born yesterday and you think the world was born just last week, but we've had a very, very long time on this planet. It's possible, given a few million years, that the genetic changes could be so significant over that time that you could get the descendant of a dog as large as an elephant.
He's basically said, we went, look, you can take a dog, which is just from the wolf, and you can breed it in no time at all, so that you have this massive diversity, huge diversity in it. And his response to that not being good evidence of evolution by natural selection
Are there limits to
is
it?
to just say, well, can you make it as big as an elephant? It's just...
And actually, hang on. In the video earlier, in the section that he cut out, was there not evidence of a dog-sized creature
Yes.
going to something as large as a whale?
Oh, it was. I mean, unfortunately, his viewers was robbed of looking at those images, weren't they? Yes, but yes, there was. There was. Oh, what's it called?
Shall we play that little bit again?
Yeah, let's go for that bit again. Let's go for it.
Paleontologists have found numerous species within the fossil record that have unique similarities with whales, but also varying sizes of hind legs. Now, once again, these bones make perfect sense if they're vestigial and or repurposed, but they're very peculiar if they're not.
Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, amazing.
Crazy. You find a species that's that small, and you find perfectly with the timing of the dating of what we're looking at, it progressively getting bigger and adapting,
And the bones changing.
and its shin turning into something that can be used for sexy time. So,
You know, there are animals as big as an elephant, like an elephant. You think they'll ever get a dog as small as a pygmy hamster?
There's teacup.
Huh?
Teacup poodles.
Chihuahuas and,
Well, they're not small as a pygmy hamster, are they?
well, no, not as small as a hamster, but
That's about
pretty
small.
close.
At some point, you reach a limit.
his audience
Someone
is contradicting
suggested,
him.
Yeah, we actually have really, really small dogs. Oh, crap. Oh, but they're not that small, are they? Oh, good, I'm safe.
That's what God said they bring forth after their kind, and those two are still the same kind, called dog.
So horses are not the same kind as donkeys, right? You understand that one? Different species. They even have a totally different number of chromosomes, but they can interbreed. So you've now got outside of their own species capable of interbreeding.
Mm.
How's that go for your not the same kind argument, you flatulent pancake?
So this is what I find with Hovind, right? He uses the word kind, and the word kind doesn't really mean anything
No, it's not.
in terms of evolution. You've got like this complete taxonomy where you've got like class and family. You know, take a dog for example. You would have dog. It's a canid. You would have it as a mammal. Like you've got all of these different layers, and he uses the word kind to refer to whatever arbitrary part he wants in one conversation, and then when you move him to another conversation, he'll say no, they're in the same kind, and he's actually referring to a different category.
Yeah, that's very true.
So right now he's talking about dogs, specifically dogs, but later on I'm fairly certain he switches his kind to something else, such as birds as a whole.
Yes,
That's a
yeah.
whole different category. That would be equivalent of going, yeah, but they're still mammals. That's
Yeah.
what the equivalent would be for dogs.
Well, I suspect that would probably be what he'd say about the horses and donkeys thing.
Yeah, he would say they're the
literally-
same
well, they're
kind.
the same kind of mammal.
It may not seem like it, but domestic dog breeds alone not only suggest evolution, they demonstrate it.
Wait. Domestic dog breeds not only suggest evolution, but demonstrate it. All they demonstrate is artificial selection.
Yes, and guess what? Artificial selection is evolution.
It's evolution by artificial selection.
The gene code of the dog has a lot of variety in it. My van has a lot of variety. I can push the pedal slowly or I can push it fast. A lot of variety in speed. I can actually turn different directions by turning that wheel. I got all kinds of variety of directions I can go. Now I'm limited. I can't go up, down, or down, but I can go right, left, forward, backward. That's proof. We evolved from a bird.
I mean, a car having variety in speed or a van having variety in speed has nothing to do with genetic change.
Now, as we've just explained, the selective pressure in the case of domestic dog breeds is artificial. It's humans deliberately selecting which dogs get to reproduce. But this raises the immediate question of what exactly selects which organisms get to reproduce in nature. And the answer is nature.
True. They have to survive to get big enough to reproduce.
Well, other than saying big enough, I think we've just won. He just said, yes, true, nature does select traits.
Cheers to that.
Thank you. So, evolution by natural selection, accepted by Kent Hovind, a creationist. But,
Beautiful. All we had to do was define everything as one kind. Nailed it.
To further explain this, and to give you a few fascinating examples, I'm going to have Thomas from Holy Kool-Aid jump in. Enjoy.
This first example is a bit of a celebrity in the world of evolutionary biology, the peppered moth. During the Industrial Revolution, coal plants dumped out enough air pollution to kill the light-colored algae on trees and coat the foliage with soot. The light gray moths, which once blended in against the bark of the trees, were now exposed and were picked off by birds and other predators. But a small percent of the population had a rare genetic mutation that led to dark-colored wings. This
Not quite true here, Holy Kool-Aid. There were always two different shades of this moth, dark and light. Some would survive better on lighter colored trees. The birds can't see them as well. Going to pick the dark one. On the dark trees, after they burn coal, the birds can't see the dark ones as well, so they're going to pick off the light ones. One did not devolve into a black moth. There was always a black moth, a dark shade of the same moth.
So what I really love here is all of the evidence that he just presented to say that there was always white and black moths. Did you notice it?
What evidence?
Yeah, me neither, Carol.
Okay.
Something to be emphasized here is that you have black and white moths, and he's just been lecturing us on how the chihuahua would not survive unless it had the advantage, right? And yet what you have here is if you have an environment that's white, then obviously the white moths are going to have an advantage and the black's going to be picked out. He's just said about the chihuahua, the black won't exist anymore. It will get picked out and won't survive. It will be as useless to be black there
as a chihuahua
is in the woods, right? that just follows. So he wants to say that chihuahuas would not exist, and fair enough, you could say that in that environment the black moths would get picked off. But he wants to say there's always been black moths, so that when the environment changes and you get all of this soot everywhere, he wants to go, no, they somehow did survive, and that's how it's still here, rather than admitting that you had this these subsequent generations in the white moths, with some of them having some black pigment and therefore them surviving. He can't admit of that.
He's
so he
actually
has to
changed
say
his
that they both.
argument.
This is Hovind
Good
all over.
catch. Really good catch. He's changed his argument. Nice.
There are dark-skinned people and there are light-skinned people today, aren't there?
Yes. There are dark-skinned people. There are light-skinned people. They are all people. Yes, they all come under the bracket of human. But guess what? We have not always existed together at the same time. What you have is any ethnicity you have today all share a common ancestor.
We're all Africans.
It's very well known at this point that humans migrated from Africa. And what you then see through evolution, as humans have then migrated to colder climates like Europe, and then wetter environments like Britain, you need different traits to survive than you do in Africa. And this generates massive amount of suffering. You've told me before about the mortality rate of humans coming to...
Yeah, I mean, this is worth getting out, right? I'm glad you bring it up, because you've got the original creationist model where they would say white people were created white, black people were created black. They no longer can buy into this. Even Kent is admitting this.
He said they both exist at the same time.
No, but what he's also saying here is that you can have this change, right? From black to white. From white to black. This is a variation that you can have in the genes. It's just the melanin in the skin. Now, what's interesting is when you get people with dark skin moving into cold climates, so our ancestors that ended up with us being white, you have to have the selection force of nature. So what this means is that an all-powerful, all-loving God made us one way, and then for us to be selected to have what we have today, there must have been horrendous death caused along the way. So basically the science works it out like this. This is what the evidence shows. If you have light skin and you're in an environment that gets little sun, so Europe, Britain in particular, what happens is you will get more vitamin D than if you have darker skin. This is very much known. He could phone up his vitamin friend and he would tell him, right? This is very, very well known. And so what would happen is the mothers that had a lighter skin would get the vitamin D and be able to pass it on to their children. Whereas those that had darker skin couldn't pass on the sufficient vitamins. And so the poor children were dying. So you have this horrendous, brutal process of selection. And under their model, This is what an all-powerful, all-loving God thinks is the right way to change his favourite creature from one colour to another. What a monster.
Still people. And this, what you have up on the screen here, is 2 dead moths glued on a tree trunk for the picture that they took.
Beneficial mutation gave them a survival advantage, allowing them to camouflage in with their changing environment. Before long, the majority of the peppered moth population were the darker variety.
Because they burn coal in the factories and the trees turn dark. The birds could pick off the light ones easier. Nothing is still a moth, still exactly the same kind of moth. That's evidence for evolution. What changed is a ratio of the population. The moth did not change at all. Not at all.
But in the 1950s, clean energy reform reversed this trend, causing the dark moths to be more vulnerable.
That is correct. They cleaned up the air pollution stuff and the trees turned light again, and now population is more 95% light moths. I agree. Still a moth.
He wants a moth to turn into a hawk. That's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
only way he'll accept evolution.
And also, like, the way that he defines moth won't be how science defines it. Because, you could have it so that the variation is so extreme that we would, via the scientific taxonomy, say these are different things. He would just say they're the same
They're
kind,
moths.
which is what he does with just about everything, right? He says, as we get to with the warblers in a second, he just says they're still birds. That's like saying that a rabbit and a dog are still mammals.
Leading to a resurgence in the lighter colored moths, who are still the dominant variety in the less polluted countryside. Now that genome sequencing has become available and affordable for scientists, researchers at the University of Liverpool have pinpointed the exact mutation that caused color change.
There was no mutation that caused the color change. There's always been dark and light moths.
Guys, it's not a mutation that caused the color change. It's just a variation.
Even if
Another
we granted that there was a mutation, even granting their argument.
Matt, by our argument, do you mean natural selection or do you mean octopus coming from space?
So what? They're still a moth,
It didn't turn into a hawk.
and it didn't turn into something different.
It's still a moth. It didn't turn into a hawk.
Called it. That's it.
You see it? Even if there was a mutation, so what? It didn't turn into a hawk.
And they say, well, you have to have time for evolution to take place. Well, a mutation is defined as an error. So the more mutations you have, the more errors accumulate in the genetic pool. The more errors you have in the genetic pool, the more likely your population is to go extinct.
They're errors. Mutations are errors in the sense that they fail to replicate the prior template. So if you've got a genetic code that has these, sequence in it, and something doesn't perfectly copy across to the new one, that is a mutation. That is an error.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that it's broken and it's going to die.
A good example of this might be this, right? So we know with dogs, we can artificially breed it so that they get taller and smaller. They seem to accept this. Great, right? What happens there in terms of errors? Well, what happens is you have dogs, or you have, let's just say, it doesn't really matter, but you have an animal and you have a replication of the genes so that it can have the same size legs as its mother and father, or like an amalgamation between the two. And there's an error, and it ends up producing one that's a bit bigger or a bit smaller. Let's say bigger.
Yep.
Now, is that an error? It's correct to call it an error because it failed to do what it was trying to do, which is to replicate. So it is an error in that sense. But as for whether or not it's an error in the sense that it's not beneficial, that's entirely determined by the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Because if they live in an environment where it's really, really hard to get hold of leaves and trees, unless you're very, very tall, then obviously that error is going to be a good thing. And if you live in an environment where you need to get into lots of little holes, having small legs is that error is going to be positive. They're going to have an advantage over those that are taller. They're going to have a higher chance of survival, so nature will select for them to be smaller.
Yeah, it'll kill off the mutations that do not help it.
Yes.
However, it won't interfere with mutations that don't hinder it.
Yeah, there's like an extinct species of a rodent that's 7 foot tall.
Rodent that's 7 foot.
7 foot tall rodent, right? I don't know how you make sense of this under creationism, but these things exist, right? Well, they existed. Turns out that being small was the best thing to select for. Okay? There's giraffes and their ancestors and giraffe-like creatures that exist that are all over the scale. But the ones we have today are very, very tall. So you have a selection force that's saying that they want to go tall, and I'm going for being small. You can't say that both of these are errors. They're very successful. They've survived.
I mean, Isle of Wighters have an error in their genetic code. That means they all have webbed feet. They're still here.
Cheers, mate. to be fair, after my introduction,
I can deliver that one. That's fine.
So no matter how you want to play this game, it cannot and will not go your way, because that which we've demonstrated to be true has falsified that which you believe.
All right, a few more minutes before I puke.
An example of evolution in action is the silent crickets of Hawaii. To attract a mate, male crickets on the island of Kauai would rub their wings together to create a chirping noise. Several years ago, a parasitic fly entered their ecosystem, honing in on the noisy crickets and laying larvae inside of them that would eat them from the inside out. A rare mutation on the X chromosome caused some crickets to develop without the ridges on their wings required to chirp. Natural selection did its thing, and within just 20 generations, 95% of the crickets on the island were silent. When the flies migrated to Oahu a few years later, the crickets there independently underwent the same life-saving evolutionary change via a different mutation. Now that's all fine and dandy.
Wait. So the crickets that chirped got the eggs laid on them and ended up dying because they had the thing on their wing that was different. So one of them had a mutated wing, unable to chirp. That now took over the population. That's very reasonable. Probably good study. Sometimes people come to the good study, but the wrong conclusion. And that's what they did here. So it's still a cricket. It's a mutated cricket.
Yeah. It's a mutated cricket, and clearly that mutation didn't cause it to go extinct. Rather, it helped it survive. So doesn't that undermine the point you just made, Matt just made a few moments ago?
Yeah.
Well, if it's turning genes on and off, and I don't want to make a knowledge claim on this, but from what I understand, this is dealing with the realm of epigenetics. Epigenetics simply is a switch of pre-existing gene information. So if you need to be able to avoid making that sound, those genes would get shut off in the populations over time.
I mean, fair play to Matt, because he said he doesn't want to make a knowledge claim. This is actually the only bit of humility I see in this video, by the way, but like, fair enough. But you can't just look at genetic change that isn't fitting your narrative and just go, yeah, that's epigenetics.
And so that's just an epigenetic change. That's what I would assume that to be.
And it's a loss of information. It's not
if it is a mutation, it's a loss of information.
Yeah, it's a loss. They didn't gain nothing.
You've criticised our English a few times throughout this video, and then you just say, they didn't gain nothing. They didn't gain nothing. Your English is awful. You're supposed to be a doctor. Come on, do better.
A doctor, yeah.
But anyway, you've just said a mutation is a loss. But they did gain the ability to survive, so I would call that a gain.
I call it a gain. It's amazing.
But, anyway, it's again, a mutation doesn't mean something's dropped or disappeared or gone from its DNA sequence. It can mean that, but it could also mean something's added to the DNA sequence, or a repeat of something can be added. Snakes?
Yeah. Again, another video from John. Beautiful video. That's John Perry from Simply Stated. I'll just play a clip now. It's awesome.
When scientists look at the genes that code for this venom, they see clear signs that the snake's very own factor 10 gene, the one that it uses in its own blood, was copied through a duplication event. After, or possibly during duplication, mutations in and near the new gene caused it to produce factor 10 protein in the venom glands instead of the blood. As time went on, small mutations built up in the duplicated gene, making it more and more efficient at its deadly new task.
But this is what I mean, is their definition of mutation is just nonsense.
Evolutionists might argue, but those are all examples of microevolution, not macroevolution. Animals never change species or reproduce outside their kind, which brings us to ring species. For this, we'll take a look at the greenish warbler of the Himalayas.
He just admitted they never come outside their species.
What he just did was say, if you are a creationist, this is what you're probably thinking.
Yeah.
Like he was really clean with that as well.
Don't get me wrong, it was fairly subtle in his voice, but I could hear the sarcasm, which was, they never come outside their kind. You're not often going to hear someone who believes in evolution say kind. So what Thomas was clearly doing there was using creationist terms to say, I'm about to respond to this.
Yeah.
Via ring species.
Yeah.
Which they've paused before the point can be made.
Just before he can make the point, which is, that's rare for them, isn't it?
Oh, it's true.
Which is still the same animal.
which biologists believe migrated south to north, branching east and west around the mountains. As time passed, they evolved and adapted to their new environments. But
they didn't evolve. Adapted, I would agree. God gave them the ability to adapt to new environments.
So if they change to their new environments over time, we call that evolution.
Yeah, because you have biological change over generations.
but continue.
That's built in. You know, my car has a heater and an air conditioner. I can adapt to cold weather or adapt to warm weather. I think it's proof somebody was thinking ahead and they designed it.
That's not how it works with animals, though. I can't go to an environment that's, 50 degrees Celsius and just turn on the ability to withstand that heat.
Yeah. Can you go to the bottom of the ocean?
I cannot suddenly turn on the ability to breathe underwater.
But hang on. Maybe epigenetics. Maybe.
Well, we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. If it does happen, can we just say that it was just part of our kind, though?
by the time they met up north of the Himalayas, they were so different that they were no longer able to interbreed.
Okay, now take a look at them. The top two. What would you say they both are? Bird.
Yes, they're birds. They're not cheetahs, you're right. Oh, evolution debunked.
He's
literally done it again. He's basically gone, but they're both birds.
No, but it's kind thing. He's used the kind in the taxonomic group of saying dog.
Yeah, bird.
Not mammal, which is what it is. But here he's going, they're both birds. You see, he just uses this kind wherever he wants, and like none of his flock seems to care that he's completely inconsistent with this.
Penguins are also birds.
Penguins are also birds,
and they can't interbreed with warblers either.
Yeah, so you could have it, according to what he's just said, you could have this diversification of a warbler.
Well, yeah,
and then you would get you get like a different type of
and
warbler
a penguin
and a penguin. Yeah,
he's fine with that.
He would just go. I mean, I would look at that and go, "That's obviously evolution," but he would just go, "They're both birds."
Yeah,
bird.
Dinosaurs.
That's obviously a T-Rex. You can see.
Good one. Yeah, obviously a T-Rex. Yeah.
And this is evidence for your theory that everything came from a dot of nothing, and we all have a common ancestor, an amoeba. They're desperate.
The theory of evolution is not the theory that everything came from nothing.
I'm just gonna do a map. All right. So, theory of evolution.
Well, even if this is a case of evolution, number one, it's still reductive. So you end up with these two different populations that can't interbreed. Yeah, that's reductive. That's deleterious by definition.
To call the fact that two species cannot interbreed harmful.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, because I don't know if he knows the word that he's using, because that is what he's saying, that it's harmful to not be able to interbreed anymore. No, because as long as you can breed with your same kind, then you're fine. So you have the warblers over here, they're breeding perfectly fine in their own environment. Over here, you have warblers, and they're breeding perfectly fine. The fact that they can't breed together anymore, that's not bad.
And then number two, we would predict in our model that we would have a lot of reshuffling of previously existing genes. So that's just reshuffling to the point where they can't reproduce. Still consistent with our model, so try harder.
And they're always losing. It's like the guy wanted to do the experiment with the dog. He would call the dog and it would come and put the dog back and cut off one leg and said, "Come here, Spot." And the dog came a little slower. So I got back, cut off another leg. Said, "Okay, come here, Spot." The dog came a lot slower. Cut off a third leg. Dog came real slow this time, but the dog came. Put it back, cut off the fourth leg. Said, "Come here, Spot." Spot didn't move. "Come here, Spot." Spot didn't move. So he concluded the dog went deaf. They're losing information, guys.
I'm sure there's no one watching at this point that needs me to explain how stupid that is. A mutation isn't necessarily a loss, because I'm going to assume that's what he's going for.
That's what he's going for.
It's a loss. It's a loss of information. They're losing out on something. It can simply be a change.
This is it. He's trying to say you can have a mutation where you lose a leg, another mutation where you lose another leg, another mutation until you lose all your legs, And I mean, his bit at the end is his joke at the end is just that
He's
doesn't really
trying
make
to
sense.
say you're
Yeah.
making the wrong conclusion because of these changes.
But it's not just that. He's defining. This is where they're going with loss of information. They're saying that you lose a leg, lose a leg, lose a leg, lose it. No.
If
you get
through,
taller, you get smaller,
more
you
than
get
that.
wider, you get shorter, you get,
if through evolution a creature lost 3 or 4 of its legs, that creature would only be able to breed if that was not going to stop it from surviving. So a creature that lost all of its legs as a result of a mutation, it could be good for them.
Rarely, but it could be, yeah.
Snakes don't have any legs.
This is it. Snakes, right? You have venomous snakes and you have constrictors. You got like a bit of a variant, but we find constrictors in fossils in strata that far outdate the venomous ones, right? So we're finding that constrictors, basically that was the successful way for a very, very long time. We find it in older rocks. Now, what that means is that you might expect in constrictors to see signs of their ancestors that you don't see in the other snakes. Well, if you look in constrictors, there's some of them that have evidence of hind legs.
Wow, that's
odd.
odd.
I mean, I guess he would just conclude that they're shins that are used in
It's
sex.
part of its sex organ.
Each bird reproduced with its southern neighbors all the way back around the loop, but they couldn't reproduce with each other. A textbook example of evolution in progress.
That's a textbook example of evolution in progress. Guys, look at me carefully. It's a bird. Bird.
If I've ever seen one.
If you've never seen
Thanks for those brilliant examples, Thomas. As always, you're on form, sir. Before we even begin this video, a simple but necessary clarification must be made.
Okay, that was it. Goes for, okay. I'm sorry, rationality. You are not rational at all, okay? You need to get a new name. Irrational.
Well, actually, good sir,
I do have a new name. It's Dr. Woodford.
Paging Dr. Rationality. I'm here, okay? I got my doctor from a cereal box like you can. You call yourself Dr. Dino. I'm going to call myself Dr. Rationality.
I mean, yeah.
Dr. Rationality. I'm really glad I got a PhD. That's some great stuff. So yeah, I'll take your advice to go for a new name.
I love that he tells you you're not rational. Would you like to explain to this man what rationality means?
Seriously, with this is, consider this my dissertation, okay? Right. The amount of times I get religious people going, "Oh, you call yourself rational, but you don't believe the same set of propositions as me." Guys, look up. Let's do a map. Let's do a map. Rationality. Okay.
You got to Google again.
The quality of being based on or in accordance with reason or logic. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, there are philosophical definitions you can use which expand upon this, but what it means to be rational is that your beliefs correspond with the evidence that you are exposed to. So, let us say that we lived 10,000 years ago, and someone said the Earth is a sphere. And it turns out that the Earth is a sphere, right? As we think it is, right? As we have really good evidence of thinking that it is. The theory of it being a sphere. But bear in mind that theory doesn't have like a complete story of where the universe came from. So it's not very good according to his.
Rubbish, isn't it?
So you've got this theory, okay? That the Earth is a sphere. If we existed 10,000 years ago, we didn't know anything, right? Basically, like Ken.
Yeah.
And what happened is someone came to us and they said, look, the Earth is a sphere. You would say, what evidence do you have for it? And it turns out that they don't. They don't have any good evidence to give you.
It would not be reasonable or rational.
Would it be? Yeah. Would you have a rational belief to then say that the Earth is a sphere? No, you would not. You would be irrational.
You can be wrong and still rationally reach a conclusion.
Precisely. So what I'm saying here is that, are there some theists that are rational? Yeah, totally. Are there some atheists that are rational? Yes, totally. Rationality does not mean that you're in possession of the truth.
Yeah.
Okay? It just doesn't. And I just get sick and tired of seeing this from... I don't just get this from this low barrel stuff with Ken. I get this from serious academics. They're like, oh, you're not being rational. Dude, do what Matt does. Google it.
But come on down. We'll take you on for a debate. Either me by myself or Matt by himself or both of us together. You're invited. Dinosaur Adventureland. We'll put you on our channel, or I'll come on your channel, I think you're mistaken. Evolution has never, you had 9 proofs of evolution. We didn't go through all of them. There are no proofs. There's not even any good evidence for evolution. It's a religious belief. You're welcome to have that. But get it out of our school system, okay?
If you wouldn't mind, I'd like to put one more nail in this guy's coffin. So, for this theory.
I just want to say that your last nail of me having to... My theory of octopi coming from space. I'm really excited for this next nail. Like, I don't know about you. This is going to be good.
That was one wonky nail.
That was a wonky nail, but let's see how this goes.
If you wouldn't mind, I'd like to put one more nail in this guy's coffin. So, for this theory. So, to say, well, you have these birds, this circle of whatever he referred to it as, and the ring of whatever.
It's a ring species. It was said literally seconds ago, you vomiting broccoli stick. Seconds ago. Ring species.
And you get these reductive traits that make it so they can't intermingle or whatever. That's creation. That's what we would expect in the creation model. Remember, we are fallen man. We expect mutations to accumulate, and therefore, after those mutations accumulate, we lose the ability to reproduce. We're losing abilities. According to you, that's evolution? That's de-evolution.
Whoa. You're saying that the mutations in man are going to cause us to go extinct because of a loss of information?
Because it's always a loss.
What you've just implied, Matt, because it's always a loss, is that God has designed us to go extinct.
What was he saying earlier about getting a recall?
Yeah. But that's what you've just said there. You've just said mutations because of the fall of man. And earlier you said mutations are errors that will cause a species with errors to go extinct.
Yep.
You have just said God designed humans to go extinct.
He has. The other thing, which is hilarious to me at least, because he talked about falsifiability, he gave us like the importance of it being falsifiable. Here's 2 different ways you can have speciation emerge. One is that you can have nature select on one particular species in such a way so that over time and over generations they can no longer breed. Then you have speciation. That's what we're talking about here, right? That's one way. That's how evolution tends to look at it, right? Well, it does look at it. The second thing you can have is that all of these species were created straight up by God. Boom, 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 boom. If you're going to say that your theory of creation
accounts for all these changes,
accounts for both of those, it's not really falsifiable, is it?
No.
So with respect, I'll take that nail out my coffin and say, here you go. Enjoy.
So by losing all these traits, somehow we're gaining information. You said that's the best example of evolution. I'm sorry, you wouldn't pass. I'm not going to say. I don't want to throw an ad hominem.
I love how you say you don't want to throw an ad hominem when you started the video saying atheists have no brain cells. Which also, by the way, when you're responding to arguments, an insult isn't automatically an ad hominem, which is why I'm quite happy to call you a vomiting broccoli stick. It's an insult. It's not an ad hominem because I've still gone after your arguments, which were terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And calling your arguments terrible is also not an ad hominem because I've demonstrated why.
Yes.
But I will say it just by losing information, somehow you've gained everything. That's your logic.
Okay, we want to help. Okay, questions. I've got some problem. I got to read them to me, right? What's the questions?
So there you have it, my fellow apes. That is our response to Kent Hovind, and I hope you enjoyed it. I've had fun doing this. I don't know about you, but
loads of fun, mate. This has been really, really hope you guys enjoyed this as a format. Obviously, the more relaxed form. Steve and I did separately go through this video beforehand, as you probably could tell. We sort of had some ideas of what was going to come up. And that they had cut a few things, although I had no idea just how much they had cut out. That I couldn't believe that.
I mean, it says something that you didn't notice when they were cutting, and it's because of the way that they style it, and they're actually watching in live, where it looks live, right? When they're watching, where they're watching a cut version and making out that it's my video. If they do this to me, they do this to everybody, right? And the fact that you didn't catch some of those was quite interesting. But this has been awesome. We hope that you've enjoyed it. Let us know if you have. Remember, if over 100 likes shows interest in him creating a video on his history channel, which has the historicity of Jesus and dinosaurs, then that's what you got to do. Just that's got to be the top comment. Please make it happen.
You know what I'll do? I'll
yeah.
split that into two, and I'll do the origins of Christianity in Britain.
That'd be awesome.
And I'll do what dinosaurs could have been found in Britain.
I'll tell you what, Christians will hate it.
And you won't have it anytime soon because I'm really slow at releasing videos.
I will tell you this. Christians will hate it if you don't sell the narrative that Judeo-Christian values is the reason for everything good in this world. They love it. The other thing to be put on the table is debunked. Finally.
Literally on the table.
Literally, yeah. Finally, there's loads of debunked available now. I'll try and put the links in the description. Well, I will. I won't try, I will. And yeah, please, if you want to get hold of one, then please do. It's always great. And as I said, 100 of these, I'm going to send one to Kent Hovind. 250, I'm going to send 2 of them. One for Matt. Personal message on there for them, and if they ever review it or say anything about it, which they probably will, then we've got another video. So yeah, just hope you really enjoyed it. If there's things you'd want us to respond to, let us know. Obviously this is different to my normal content. I'm not normally unscripted. Just feedback. Feedback's awesome.
And if you've enjoyed listening to my voice, please do come and check me out over at Castles and Curiosities. And I'll leave there to Steve, but with just one final word to Mr. Kent Hovind.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.